What is up, brothers and sisters? Welcome to the Mitch Gray Show. I am stoked to have you today. I've got an awesome surprise for you. Obviously, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see the surprise. Good-looking guy sitting to the right of me on camera. But if you're listening to us, I told you on my Instagram post the other day that we've got some cool stuff coming for you. And you know what? I'm not waiting until 2019 to start the awesome stuff. I'm starting right now. And so a part of the surprise is we're going to be doing our weekly show. By the way, if you have not subscribed to the Mitch Gray Show, please do so. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, and I'm sure you can find us on other platforms as well. Go check us out. Follow us on social media, mgray media, MGRAY media, on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And so part of what I told you on Instagram the other day, if you follow us there, is that we're going to be putting out our weekly podcast of the Mitch Gray Show. Great content for you, but we're also adding a couple of guests a month. So you're going to get like 6 to 7 episodes every single month. I made a promise on Instagram the other day, and that promise was to do everything I can to inspire you to some really cool things in your life. So on to today's awesomeness, and that is my friend Miguel Carvalho.
There you go. You got to say it like that with the scrunchy face.
Yeah, that white guy grit in there. Oh my gosh! For those of our friends, Miguel, that are just listening, we need to tell them to go to YouTube, right? To my YouTube channel, Mitch Gray. It'll probably be up on your YouTube channel too, maybe. Yep. They need to go and see our scrunchy faces.
Scrunchy faces. Just a whole video of scrunchy faces saying Carvalho.
That's all we're going to Carvalho. That's all we're going to
My family in New York, though, they say it. They're like, you say it like an Italian. You don't even, like, come on. They're, like, trying to get me to step up my game. But,
and then you got to, like, get the hand up, like, Carvalho. Yeah, like it's like you're a mafia master or something, which.
Right.
Yeah. So everybody that does not know Miguel, this is my friend Miguel. You can follow him at Middle T Music. That's Middle, MIDDLET Music. That stands for Middle Theory. Miguel used to be the front man for a band called Run With It, who, by the way, your music is still streaming, right?
It is still up on Spotify. I think it might have another year on Spotify, potentially. But then it could be coming down. So, yeah, I think you have to renew it like every year or every 2 years, something like that. I don't really know. I got an email from a producer at one time. He's like, hey, do you want to do another year? And I'm like, yeah, let's do another year, even though we ended. So
I'm glad you did, though, bro. Y'all, I know you had your season in life. Everything comes in seasons. But, man, you guys made your season rock. You put out some great stuff.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was a fun 6 years, but I love what's happening now. So I love what Middle Theory is starting to become. And really, right now, it's like I'm just trying to find myself artistically. But yeah, I just got back from Nashville and kind of dreaming with the producer that helped Run With It and dreaming the next steps for Middle Theory. And I'm pumped. 2019 is going to be a really cool year. We even got some tentative plans for 2020 as we lay things out. So yeah, it's been a good switch. It was a hard switch, but a good switch.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you don't follow Miguel, please go do so on Instagram, Middle T Music, because I loved seeing your stories of the process in Nashville. And, of course, as a musician, I geek out on all that stuff. But it's just it's really cool for your fans, bro, to, you know, you were showing screens of all the cool stuff that we get to see on the production side. And then I think, if I'm not mistaken, you had a couple of shots of you and your producer just sitting there kind of playing things out.
Yeah, my oldest son, he's 14, doing video and photography now. His big dream is to tour with rappers and do video and photos for them. So he's hustling on Instagram, meeting a bunch of rappers. Awesome. Meanwhile, learning the ropes with me, and it was cool because he got to capture things that I wouldn't because my brain is in it. Once I get in that studio, it's like, okay, we're in it, and but I'm glad that translates because there's just some cool moments that happen, and I hope one day to do even more.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Thanks for sharing that. So to our listeners, I know I'm harping on it, but go follow Middle T Music because Miguel, not only that, dude, but you're a very inspirational guy, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. So, so you just went to Nashville. What other projects do you have going right now?
Yeah, right now I'm working on putting out – so basically – since June, I've been trying to release one original and one cover every single week. In the middle of working myself out of my full-time job, that got pretty tough. But I think I released about 20 original songs since June. But all of it's kind of more lo-fi. I do it here in the studio. I'm not a producer. You know, I dig into the singing, the songwriting. So coaching from a person that I trust in the industry said, hey, you need to get something on Spotify, but get it recorded legit. So I went back to the producer. His name's Josh Cleve. He's out in Nashville.
Cool.
Someone I trust, I've been working with for years. And I said, hey, let's sit this down and pick like the top 4 songs and do like legit. We're calling it demos still because it's more stripped down. But it's solid recording, and he really challenged me on my songwriting in it to tweak it. So even that I'm realizing is going to be, excuse me, even that's going to be the process of showing like, here's this one song. For example, there's a song I released called Make the Whiskey Last that I released as just a weekly thing. But then when I release it, when it's done and mixed, you're going to see already the differences there. And then it may live on into a full band thing one day too. So even that, I'm trying to show the process of the songwriting.
That's awesome, man. Do you have a release date yet? Are you gonna release it like a single at a time, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, that's the plan, is just doing singles, because with Run With It, we learned some great lessons. Hustle was our big thing. My guys worked their asses off. We all like just hours and hours. We took this EP of 6 songs, poured our heart into it. Great production. Josh did a killer job. We felt like solid songwriting. We hit number 66 on iTunes as an independent band for the alternative charts. And with no money behind you and as an independent band who never touched the charts, that was kind of a big deal.
Huge.
But what we noticed was there was like 1 or 2 songs on the EP that no one even bothered listening to. Because the way streaming now works, it's like, oh, we're excited about this song. Oh, we might get excited about that one. Oh, no, on to the next thing. So now, we're seeing even One Republic just announced that that's how they're going to start releasing music, is doing more singles. And so, hey, this year it's going to be a bunch of singles thrown at you and seeing, what works, putting some videos to it. But yeah, I'm suspecting February or March will be the first one coming out, and then I hope to do at least one a month after that.
Right. Yeah, the music scene has changed, man, and it's a different day and time, It's and that's what I always tell people. I'm like, the day and time of selling CDs to make money is gone. And I don't know that it'll ever return. You're seeing a resurgence of vinyl, and I think that's a novelty. But for artists like you and I, to put money into vinyl is insane, man.
To me, it's when I see a local band do it, I think it's cool. I get it. Yeah. I love the feel of it, the vibe of it. But the reality is it's still only like 10% of the market share. Yeah. And it's a novelty item. And it just, at the end of the day, it doesn't make business sense for someone like me, at least, to put money into the mixing. And like, there's just so many components,
Yes.
What I love about where it's at, though, is I think for the entrepreneurial artist, it is the day. Like, it's here. And if you're willing to bust your ass, if you got that entrepreneurial mindset, I think the sky's the limit. Excuse me. Gotta clear my throat there, but yeah, I think the sky is the limit, because definitely the days of I'm just an artist and here's my heart, and hopefully this crazy team of people will make it big. That doesn't exist anymore.
That's less than 0.5% of artists that are out there, honestly. I mean, and a guy told me one time, a pretty decent sized producer, he was like, man, what you have to think about in the music world especially is, and even in the the painting art world, the artists that you hear on the radio or see in the art studios are like less than 1% of the people out there. And you can prove that by, you're based out of Kansas City. I can go to Kansas City 7 nights a week and hear 20 different bands probably.
Absolutely. There's like over 500-600 bands, I think, just in Kansas City alone.
Right. And so, I mean, even in my town, we don't have any venues, but I mean, there's, 10 or 12 bands that are really, really good bands. And so, what you hear on the radio and Top 20 radio, it's called Top 20 radio for a reason, because all they play is the top 20, and the crazy thing is it's upside down like a lot of marketplaces. I always tell people as well, what you hear on Top 20 radio is probably the least creative music that you can hear.
Yeah, potentially. I think there's some good stuff out there. I'm a big fan, but there is some stuff that's just, we made it so you can dance in club, bro. That's it.
Hey, there's a formula for number one hits for a reason, and and you play it in G or E and you go. Anyway, that's cool, man. I love seeing your process, and I know your platform and your fans have to love. I think that's where the more minuscule artists like you and I who are trying to do it to the best of our ability, I think that's where we can make a difference and an impact on our business is by showing people the process. That it's like we were talking about earlier before the show is the curse and the blessing of technology. And I think I actually made a post on that yesterday when I was so ticked off on technology. But the blessing is, man, I can reach out to, thousands of people on social media via whatever I want to put out on social media. And so,
Right.
And I know you take advantage of that platform. And I think that's what really makes people like us stand out a little more is we're not so busy and we're not being so marketed. We both follow a lot of bigger artists, and you really never you get a lot of content, but you never really get that personal content. And,
Right.
And it's just like big business. You can go to a mom and pop shop and Sam, the owner, will stand there and talk to you about how to slice meat. But if you go to Walmart, or a big shop, Sam, the butcher, isn't going to tell you how to. They don't even have a butcher,
Exactly.
They do
They're
not
like,
even
"What
know
the-"
how to slice. Exactly. And so I think that's where, we have to really say, okay, we're going to take ownership of what we're doing and share that process. So that was beautiful, dude. I loved seeing that in Nashville, man. Thank you for sharing.
Well, thank you,
all
man.
that.
It's cool to hear. And that's what I've loved about it is there's times cause I'm an artist, so I have this weird like 50-50 brain. Like I'm like super driven business entrepreneur guy over here who's like, let's do this. Then I have the 50% like melodramatic, the world's going to end tomorrow. My wife's like, seriously, get your shit together. You're fine. You're fine. And,
Yes.
and so even there, I just went off. I had a point to all that now, but I don't even remember what my point was. So for example, the artist brain just took over.
Yes.
I came back and I remembered. So when the world feels like it's just like, this is worthless. Why am I even doing this? No one cares. I'll get these random little messages like on Snapchat or Instagram from other artists, which has been interesting. And other people, like there's someone who's going through college and trying to finish like their finals. And they're like, this is what your song meant to me this week. Or thank you for sharing the process. I've had artists say that because it inspires them because they see like, oh, this shit's not easy for you. Right. Or me. So we're okay. We're all right. So that kind of stuff kind of inspires me and just keeps me wanting to do it more, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's the food for our soul, right? Especially as artists. It's like all at once, the confirmation, the affirmation, the permission, and the food. And that's
absolutely.
I think that's why all creatives do what they do, it's so that's cool, man. Hey, I wanted to ask you because, you and I've talked about this a little bit, but I think it's really, I believe when we share our story, I think oftentimes the most powerful piece of that is the genesis of that story. And man, I would love to hear what you're a hustler, man, especially in the music scene. What got you into music? Like what is it about music that just wakes Miguel up and says, you have to do this? Like where did that start? What seed was planted in you? Maybe how did that all begin?
So for me to go way back, I remember being like 9 and 10 in the shower singing constantly, and Goo Goo Doll's name, excuse me, Goo Goo Doll's name just had popped out at the time. And I remember just like singing that at the top of my lungs. And then I look back now, I didn't realize what I was doing, but I was constantly singing and making up songs in the shower. And I was like 8, 9, 10 years old. But for me, it was just what I did. And it wasn't until later in life processing really the same question. It's like, man, I was doing that even way back then. And that kind of, for me, kind of died out. And then in like middle of high school, I was 16 and I was going to a church because there's this girl that I was really into and she went to that church kind of thing. And, but the band, it was these like, they were probably total potheads who were just found their way into like this church band in retrospect, but they're like, yeah, we're so cool. And we're playing guitar and drums. My buddy was like, hey, can you teach me drums? And I saw the guy playing guitar and there's just something about it. Yeah. I was like, I want to learn that. And so a friend let me borrow his acoustic. I think I kept it for like 2 years. Yeah. It almost became mine.
Right.
And from there, but from the beginning, I was writing. I was like, I knew nothing, but I was still trying to write. And So it's something that bleeds in me. I've actually tried to quit music several times. I started a roofing company, and a buddy of mine asked me, he's like, what are you doing? Like, you're supposed to be doing music. It's like, no, I'm making money, bro. I'm making money. That's what I'm doing. Leave me alone, because it's a tough industry. I almost quit last year, and it was my wife who was like, no, you can figure this out. You can figure this out. And because no matter what, I think she sees in me, it's like, there's just this thing inside me that I have to write. It's almost my sanity. And I think the writing is in some ways therapeutic. And then I think for me too, I find I do better. Like for a while when the band ended, I was just doing a full-time landscaping job just to help make ends meet at home. And I think that not having a lot to do, it was nice for like a few weeks.
Yes.
But for me, I think I actually I'm happier when things are under pressure, which is just really weird. But the times I look back in my life when I was happiest, it was like just the right amount of stress. Now there's definitely a above and beyond, because I think I burnt myself out, but it's like finding that sweet spot of like, no, I like to have this going on. And the music industry offers that at any moment, because it's like, now we're working on songwriting. Now we're working on networking. Now we're working on this or this. And it just never ends. But it's nice because I'm in charge of it. So if I need to turn it off, like this Friday, it's just me and my wife. The kids are going to grandparents. And so turning all that shit off, and we're just going to hang out. So you might hear you're probably hearing a meltdown of my kids in the background.
That was cameo number one. That was
cameo number one.
Yeah.
My 4 crazy boys, only one's at home right now. So he's preschool and they have no school today.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. It's so nice to not have school anymore. Yeah. The one thing I firmly believe with, in fact, yesterday's, the episode I posted yesterday, I was talking about the power of dreaming. And that's kind of what's driving our content this week. And the one thing I firmly believe with everything that I am is hold
on 1 second. I think I got cameo. Cameo number 2.
Yes.
What's up, buddy? You want to say hi?
No.
You sure? Just pop in there.
No.
Okay, cool. What's up, bud?
Can I go outside because Holly's outside?
If Holly's outside, you can go outside. Can you close the door?
And ladies,
he's super. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
And ladies and gentlemen, that is what you get when you get people like us.
Right.
Total vulnerability and real life.
Yeah, it is real life, the rock star dad life.
Yes, like, I love it.
There's been so many times where it's like roll off a tour and then you get showered and then you run to a Christmas program or because it's like, that's what we're about, man.
Yep,
that's what
right.
it is. So.
That's right, man. That's amazing. By the way, I will not edit that out because I find it awesome. So
I love it. I love it.
But yeah, the first thing I find that I believe in regard to dreams and dreaming is that everyone has a dream.
Right.
Everyone. How they navigate that dream is what we see manifested in life, but everyone has a dream. The second thing is I find that most people's dreams and ideas and goals they began when they were children. Mm-hmm. Like what you talked about, and we may not understand it, and we may not understand how to interpret it, and we may not understand maybe how to turn it into a career or what to do with it. But I found that the majority of people, it's like, if you ask them the genesis of the dream, they'll be like, when I was 7 or 8 years old, or when I was 10 or 11 years old, or maybe when they were a teenager, they ended up getting their first job and worked for a manager that was spectacular, and it made them go, I do want to be a CEO, and I think we miss that. I learned in raising my kids. My youngest is 17 and my oldest is 23. And what I really tried to do was plant that seed in them. But even as a conscious parent and trying to plant that seed, I know I still missed those moments.
Right.
And recognizing, hey, in this moment, my kid is actually doing something that is valuable and almost spiritual, at a level, a deep, really deep level. And so when I ask people that story of where did this begin, almost every time people are like, when I was 7 or 8 or 9 or 10, I'm like, wait, like that's telling us something. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that is telling us something, and I really wish we would focus on that more. And we could get off on another tangent about that, but I'm seeing more and more parents that are actually homeschooling their kids, not because, back in the day it was like, well, I don't want them to go to public school.
The world.
Yeah. But now what I'm hearing is more parents going, no, I want to educate my kids myself because I want to take those moments where I see that reflection in them and go, yeah, we're going to capitalize on screw math today. Like we're going to capitalize on that, on creativity or something they said, or like in your case, mom hears you singing in the shower, and it's like, no, today we're going to a concert because my son. Right. And if you're a young parent out there, that would be probably my best piece of advice is be aware of those moments, be conscious of those moments, and take advantage of those. So that's your father.
And I have some good friends who they homeschooled their daughter. They didn't homeschool all their kids, but their daughter just was showing some interest in certain things and wasn't doing well in school. So they pulled her out and like she's about to graduate, I think a year and a half early.
Wow.
Right now she had kind of moved through all of it, but then projects for her were like, put together a music festival. So she put together a legit music festival on the lake where they live and got bands from like Kentucky and all sorts of stuff to come in as a 14-year-old girl. Like your mom and dad kind of guided and helped.
Yeah, but
that kind of stuff is that's real world application. And even Trey, our oldest, he's got accepted into a special program where it's part of the public school system, but they're trying out a different method. And it's more like that. It's more self-guided, and it's actually more intense than regular school, but it's all the freedom. There's more freedoms there, and he's been loving it. And some of it, actually, he's putting together one of his projects was putting together a fundraiser. So he's putting together a fundraiser in February, a concert where he's kind of overseeing all those things and reaching out to all the people, recruiting the people himself. And man, I told him, I was like, I had to teach myself all this when I was in my 20s to try to figure out how to survive as a musician. And you're getting to do this in the safety of like home and school. And now you're going to have skill sets that like I had to bleed for, man.
Bro, that is unbelievable. Man, as a dad to another dad, thank you for giving him those opportunities, man. That is incredible. Oh, that's incredible. We need more dads like us, man. Let's just say it.
Yes, we could totally solve all the problems of the world with our fatherhood. Meanwhile, you see other nights where I'm like losing my shit because they're like, decided to paint the whole wall with a dry erase marker. Like, oh, that one's not the dry erase wall. Those kind of things, but yeah.
Oh yeah, dude, we're human, bro. Yeah. Like I'm terrible with the little things. Like I just need to bite the bullet and hire an accountant and all that stuff because I think I can do all that stuff on my own, and I'm just not. I'm not the bricklayer, man.
Dude, accountant will change your life, and save so much money. It's worth paying the money to save so much. I about hugged the first accountant I worked with when she showed, because I was like, there's no way I can pay all this money. I went to her. She's like, okay, here's your assignments. Came back and I was like, I wrote a check to the government and to her. And I was like, I've never been so happy paying somebody money before because it was like $4,000 less than I thought I was going to have to do.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing. So yeah, where are you doing music full time now, or what kind of how I think the myth is, and kind of what I've learned over the last 10 years is, and we do this in all areas of life, like when we look at our parents. We look at these people and we put them on a pedestal, and we do that in the creative industry. It's like, oh my gosh, I love this rock band, or I love this politician, or I love this college professor, or whatever. And we just see the outside perception, It's like, oh man, this rock band that I love, all they do is tour and all they do is do this. Meanwhile, man, these people are successful because they, A, work really, really hard, and B, they most of the time have multiple interests. And so that's when you'll see guys, let's just go back in the day, like John Bon Jovi, man, who owns multiple professional sports leagues and multiple businesses. And in the 80s, when everybody was drinking and wasting their money away, John Bon Jovi was like investing, and he's
smart man.
Yeah, I mean, but most people don't see that because of our fandom, right? Because of and so. And
those aren't the sexy. Well, at least at one time, those weren't the sexy things. But I've been noticing, even sitting in like bars, there'll be like millennials. There'll be like a 20-something showing his like investment app to somebody else, and he's like, "Look what I just invested in." So it's like people are starting to recognize, like, no, that's smart.
Yeah. No, the
There's a
narrative.
band called Gooding. I'm not sure
Okay.
if you've heard of them, but
Uh-uh.
they actually do clinics on budgeting for musicians,
Oh,
those kind of
wow.
things, where
Yeah.
they're working class musicians. They have a following and all that, but it's just that, like you said, the reality. A lot of these
Yeah.
guys and girls, they're making their money. They're taking that money from their passion that's happened to come in
Yes.
and funnel. And I was in a studio this weekend that's paid for. There's a country artist who has like multiple number one hits, but what people don't know is he owns several buildings on Music Row, and that's his investments. And he then comes along, other people invest in them, and it's like, oh, we just see the private jet and we just see
Yes.
this.
Yes.
But instead, no, he's building an empire and a legacy, empire of money and a legacy of people, which is cool. So
Yeah, and that's what I always tell people. I'm like, you don't dig into the picture, like that cool poster that you see, like start ripping it apart and really study what's happening. And what I find is like when we're out on tour, people are like, oh wow, they just assume that we're full time musicians, and I'm like, man, I love music and I would love to do it full time, but it's probably about 15%, maybe at most, of what I do, because you have to have other things, and I love having other things, and so. So kind of where I'm going with that is I get to see what you do, because we've gotten to know each other over the last year or two.
yeah.
But you have a following of 12 or 13,000 people that may not get to see all of that. So what would
Right.
what story would you tell about how you're working through that? I know you alluded to it earlier about kind of quitting
Yeah.
music and working. And then follow that up with what, say you've got an 18, 19-year-old musician who's saying, they take you out for coffee and they're like, Miguel, just how's this going to work? So yeah, how are you navigating that? And B, what advice would you give to that young person that's kind of trying to step into what's happening?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, the thing that guides me is the concept of positioning yourself to be able to leverage any opportunity. And I think that when it comes to the finances, I think it's about finding a way to be full-time music in the sense of your push and drive, but recognizing that it's a very inconsistent industry. So one, if you do make money, don't spend it, save it, invest it. And two, if you're not making money, find another thing, but make sure that thing is something that allows you to leverage an opportunity. For example, I was doing full-time landscaping because it's what I had to do at the time. We got to a place after our last tour, I pulled all my money out of investments. I learned a lot of these lessons the hard way. I pulled my money out of investments. We put all of our own personal finances behind it. As a band, we were making money, which was really cool, but the expenses just is like we're bleeding cash as we're trying to tour and make more records and, and do all these things.
Right.
So I had to do a full-time job that didn't allow me that same kind of flexibility, didn't allow me to go to Nashville and work on writing or to do that. But it's what I had to do at the moment.
Right.
But the next step was, how do I get free? So music, there's seasons where I'm playing 9, 10 shows a month and actually making money, but that's not like, for example, this month I've only got like 6 shows,
Right.
January right now, there's nothing. Yeah. January is nothing booked, but then February on might be crazy. So for me, it was seeing the other skill sets I had. I started a media company where I'm basically doing what I've done in the music world, helping businesses like contractors, landscapers manage their social media, do marketing, and help them, bringing value to them.
Right.
And for everybody, it's going to be different for everyone. I've even at this point, I ended up losing 2 clients as I was stepping out of my full-time job, which was one of those oh God.
Yeah.
But it was that knee-jerk reaction where I'm like, no, I need to go back to the safe thing. I was like, no, I want to be full-time music. I have to be available to do X, Y, Z. So what does it look like? Even like, I think the next step I was talking about was even doing some Uber stuff. So if I have a night free, I can go make some money. And if not, there's no pressure in that. So I think it's learning those multiple streams of income. But the 18, 19-year-old, I think the number one thing I would say is stay out of debt. Period. Stay out of debt and financially position yourself to take the opportunities you have. My scenario is a little different. I have 4 boys. I'm married. I have 4 boys. I have a Great Dane, 2 Great Danes, and we don't live extravagant, but just in that, going to McDonald's costs $60 and we all ordered off the dollar
menu. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a different reality for me. It's not insurmountable, but it's much harder. I definitely know why a lot of people don't do what I'm doing at my age and with kids and all those, because it can be tough. But yeah, I think again, it's positioning yourself to make the most of your opportunities, down to like, are you like, especially the 18, 19-year-old, that's who we're talking to. It's, go to Nashville, sleep on someone's couch, be willing to not live this high life and try to act like you're cool. It's like, in fact, that's a cooler story. It's like, came to Nashville. I know like 2 people. I'm sleeping on a couch and I'm spending 6 nights a week in every single bar, meeting every single artist and person I can. And just not spending money and invest. I think there's some Robinhood is a great investment app. You don't want to dive in without some knowledge, but there's a lot of knowledge out there. I think investing and making sure there's a long-term perspective. And so, yeah, because it's really easy just to throw all your money in, but it's kind of like Russian roulette. I'd rather play like Texas Hold'em. There's a lot of percentages and there's some gambling to it, but there's a lot more just skill involved in it.
Yeah, it's
I feel like I meandered, but yeah, basically position yourself to leverage the opportunities that come your way. So
no, I love that, and it's like, yeah, it's like you don't need that $1,200 guitar. Just buy the $300 one for now, and learn to make it sound good. It's little things like that I think people, especially younger people that are stepping into this, and I look back, we got married when I was right after my 19th birthday, and so I've always had a family. I've always had kids, and you're right. It is an interesting juggling act to try and figure this out. And talk about investing. The one thing I told my kids, and I tell every young person, once you start receiving tax refunds, put that in the bank. Like,
not smart.
Put that, because that's
like rolling, getting a 56-inch TV.
And again,
listen, it's like 90 now. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like, that's a mistake that we made. It was like, we waited every year for that money because we didn't have any money, man, forever. Right. And we really still don't have any money.
Mistakes.
And it's like, no, I've probably told 300 young people that as soon as you start getting your tax refund, if you just start packing that bad boy away, that's easy. And especially for a creative person. If they have that extra $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a year that's just coming at them, that over time can really make a difference. And so, man, I love the full-time mental aspect, which you alluded to. And that I think that narrative is shifting as well. I think years ago it was like, man, I've got to be full-time creative or nothing. And it's like, well, if you're a creative, then you are a creative.
Yes.
You are full-time creative. Now, how you manifest that, let's have that conversation. But I think
I was at a meeting last night with he owns a media company as well. And we were getting some drinks, just kind of talking business. I was trying to learn some things. And that's what he said. He's like, he's like 56 or something. He's been in the industry for a long time doing marketing. And he goes, the creatives just have to understand, like, you can do both.
Yes.
You can do both. Like, do the logo that you're like, oh my God, this is not why I studied art. But like, fucking do it because it's going to pay for you to do that other thing. In a reality, that other thing that you're doing, that passion, maybe 20 years from now, you may get to sell that for $100,000.
Yes.
But you can't now, and you definitely won't if you don't survive till then. So find a way. And honestly, even as I apply like social media and creative and editing and stuff to other businesses, I apply all the things I learned to my own music. It kind of takes me out of the super creative, like this is my art, and down to, okay, how do I get this? If my art's so important, how do I get it to the people that need it?
Yes.
Right. And
Yes, and yes. I think it's a different shift in thinking I'm a creative, so I have to do creativity versus I'm a creative and that's my identity.
Right. That's a great point.
And I think when we can learn to say, yes, that's who I am. It's in my DNA. It's singing in the shower at 7 years old. It's taking Legos and becoming a young architect. It's Gary Vaynerchuk going out at 14 years old and selling baseball cards.
Right.
It's who we are. And once we can rest in who we are, the doing just kind of works itself out. And that's why I love where you said leveraging opportunity, man. That is a great way to phrase that. And I think that is great advice, man. Just be who you are. do what you have to do and leverage opportunity. I love it, man. I
Yeah.
love it.
And that comes, like I said, I think there's times in my life where opportunities that came, but because of mistakes I made financially, I wasn't able to take them.
Right.
And so that's where I'm trying to change that future for myself. And I hate to see when other artists go down that track. But luckily, honestly, a lot of the 18 to 21, 22-year-old artists I'm meeting are smart as fuck.
Yes.
It gives me a lot of hope for the next generation of artists, because a lot of them are living in shitty apartments where there's actually my old drummer. He lives in the ghetto, down to a point. A friend of mine works in the police department. He found out where he lived and he called me. He's like, you need to tell him he needs to move out, but it's this apartment of all drummers, and they just got together. They're living under their means. They're being smart so they can be free to take the opportunities that are in front of them. And I'm like, that's so cool, instead of people trying to turn up and wonder why they can't go on tour. And I've seen that. I've seen it time and time again. Artists who are they had an opportunity to tour with a big name artist, but they didn't have the money to get on that tour, and they burned every bridge before they got to that point, and now nothing. Yeah. So yeah, I could go off on that for a long time.
Well, but I'll tell you what, it would be kind of cool to maybe do another episode just talking about things like that specifically, because and it's not just, we're talking about artists and we're talking about creatives, but it's also the kid that's in college that wants to start his own company.
Right.
It's also the
same
kid,
thing applies. Yeah.
Exactly. Or it's the young lady that wants a family one day but wants to start her career first. It's the principles that apply.
Exactly.
Their life principles.
All across it.
Yeah, and so that's why you see, guys like Gary Vee and others that we look at that have been so successful in giving that advice, because they're what I call universal truths. If you apply them to any situation, they work. And so I love that, man. I love that. So what, we've kind of incidentally gone through the process of where you were and where you are.
Through that advice.
Yeah, what's, I love to look in 5 to 10 year perspectives. I mean, the next 5 years, I know you've got goals and I know you've got ambition and I know there's realities. So what does that look like for you? If we sit here in 5 years from now, where do you hope to be?
Well, for me, there's a book called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, and it was given to me right when my band was kind of falling apart. We weren't falling apart, I guess. It came to end, and we knew, at least I knew it had to end for me.
Right.
And it was really good timing, because I was just kind of burnt out and just done. We got off our last run, which was just really rough. We had shows canceled while we were on it, and all the real life of being a touring musician. And anyways, this book really made it challenged. It's a great book. If you get a chance to check it out, your listeners, definitely check it out. But it made me wonder, what do I give a fuck about? Yeah. And so the two things is living an adventurous life with my family. So I see us building a future for our family where we get to travel. We all love traveling. And, we did, I would get off the road with the band. I would pack, shower. We'd load the tour van with the kids, and we'd do a family tour. We'd go West Coast family tour and see all these different things, because we want our kids to experience different cultures. And so we're testing out in America. I know it's we're kind of, the culture's similar, but we eventually want to build it to where we can take them international and get used to traveling like that. So that's the kind of life I want to provide for my family. And then the other thing I give a fuck about is creating art, creating media that impacts people. Awesome. And so that leads down the road. Obviously, for me, my biggest passion is singing and songwriting. So I want to, in that aspect, I want to be an internationally touring artist, run with it, got as far as Middle East and back. I want to take that to where building legit followings overseas and kind of continuing where Run With It was, but build it to the next level. Right. Ideally, I want to tour arenas and those kind of things. It's still in my heart. I still want to do those things. But I also know that if I can make enough money to where I can give the thing I want my family to experience, I will be happy in that. But I still am gunning. I told Jenny, I was like, my wife, I told her, I said, I think I realized I tried to bring my goals backwards. all it did is make me go to sleep at 7 o'clock at night when I'd come home from landscape.
Yeah.
And I was like, I realized I have to have the big goal, even if I don't reach it. And I know, like, I called my producer one day. I was like, am I crazy? Is it dumb? Is this just crazy trying to pursue this? He goes, oh yeah, you're crazy.
Right.
And I'm like, that's not what I wanted to be like, no, bro. He's like, no, you're crazy. Like, it's absurd. It's absurd that any of us think we can make a living doing this.
Yeah.
But are you going to stop?
Right.
And like, I was like, no. And he's like, and I'm not either. We're just going to keep going. And it's what drives us. And so I still have those goals, but really I want to create, you've been an inspiration in a sense too of listening to the podcast, because I did a series with Run With It called Art Can Change the World. And I'm kind of doing the 2.0 version that's going to launch 2019 called Live and Create. Formats where I interview other artists and entrepreneurs about their life and how, like, really, in a sense, what do they give a fuck about, you know, and hearing their stories. And so creating those kind of things. But yeah, in the end, I see it where my family's living an adventurous life together, and I'm continually creating, living in the process of creating art and media. So
that's awesome, man. That is, yeah, it's the absurdities that actually motivate us, right?
It really does. Oh yeah, I could just do like the wedding band thing, and I got a friend who does that. And if that's your thing, that's cool. I actually have a friend who's like no shit, $10,000 a show doing weddings, and they're amazing at it, but he loves it. Right. And I'm like, that doesn't drive me. No. So the reality is I will be playing weddings, and I do, but I know it's trying to get the trajectory going to where I want to go. So,
Right. Yeah, that's I'm the same way. I'm like, someone once said, I read it in a book, but they were like, if you can actually, they said if money isn't a problem for your dream, then it's not a big enough dream. And then they came back and said, and if your only problem for your dream is money, then it's not a big enough dream. It's almost like they were saying, it's like back in those network marketing days. Like I remember meeting with Amway people, and the first question they ask when they walk in is, if money wasn't an option or a problem or a barrier, what kind of life would you live? And that's they were actually onto something, right? I don't like the whole deal, but anyway. And
I got you. But I see where you're going.
What they're onto is you have to have this large, absurd idea that will motivate you toward doing large, absurd things that you then learn it takes the smaller things, like playing at weddings and such and such. I was listening to a motivational speaker the other day, and actually I was watching his Instagram, and he does a really good job at showing the process as well. And he was doing a Q&A on Instagram stories, right? And someone goes, hey, I'm trying to be a speaker and get my business going. What's your advice? And he's all, you take every second grade opportunity you have to talk to second graders, and you take every coffee shop opportunity. I mean, he was like, the way you become a speaker is to speak.
Right.
And I think that's what people forget. The way you become a musician is, just like writing. I'm also an author, and the way you learn to write is to actually write.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what I've loved about what you've done on one song, one original, one cover. Is I think on one of your stories about 6 or 8 months ago, you were like, I have to write a song like every day, or every week. And that's what I always tell people. I'm like, you have to create all the time to get to the absurdities and to get to the dreams. But if you don't dream absurd things, what's going to motivate you? What's going to push you forward? And so I love it, dude. He's right. You're crazy. But the flip side of that is, if you didn't have a crazy enough dream, he would have been like, no, that's not crazy enough, bro. Come on.
Right. I love where he's like, but are you going to quit?
Yep.
And it's like, shit, you're right. Yeah. You're right. And it's almost, I saw a quote yesterday. I'm going to butcher it. Essentially, it was the idea of, like, to be successful, you have to be completely unrealistic and incredibly realistic at the same time. Yes. Where I think it was Mark Twain or something, but I've been reflecting on that since I read it. And it's like, yeah, in a sense, you almost have to be delusional. It is delusional to think that someone would give enough, care enough about my music that they're going to tell all their hundreds of thousands of friends over, over time to where I can stand in an arena and sing that song to them.
Yeah.
Because that's what it has to take. That's absurd.
Yes.
So it's almost, you have to be delusional, but then you also have to be realistic. Like if that's ever going to happen, like you said,
Yeah.
are we going to do that house show? Yeah, I'm going to do that house show.
Yep.
And I'm going to connect with that one person because literally that one person is going to be the one that tells the next person. Rick Barker is a great person. If you're out there, for your listeners too, if you're young in the industry, music world, look up Rick Barker. This guy is brilliant. Learned so much from him. We've paid for some coaching from him, all that kind of stuff. He was the one who launched Taylor Swift. And he talks about the early days of Taylor Swift. And he said, she came up to him and said, I want a gold record. And he goes, okay, that's really simple. We just have to introduce you to 500,000 people that want to buy your music. So it's absurd,
right?
But they went to work on what does it look like to just get her in front of 500,000 people, because you have to have 500,000 people to buy your music to get a gold record. And the simplicity yet absurdity of that was like, oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it really is. It's like when you think about these goals and achievements, the formula is simple.
Yeah.
Now it's like, okay, are we ready to really tackle the absurdly simple to get to where we're going? And so, I heard someone say that was running for. It was actually recently in the election. Some national congressman, or I don't remember what it was, but one of these congressmen or senators that kind of caught fire, and they were like, honestly, it's the most narcissistic thing ever to think that you can actually run to, for one of these positions, because what you're telling people is, I have what you need.
Right.
And what I love, though, is watching these, politicians, creators, CEOs, artists, the insincerity doesn't last.
Yeah, that's true.
The people that are only chasing the platinum record, by the way, which I don't think is true about Taylor Swift, but the people that are only chasing the platinum record, they don't last. And sometimes they get it and sometimes they don't. What I love are the sincere people. I had an experience in this. I'm not a country music fan. My wife listens to country music. Every time she cranks it up, I'm like, yeah. And if I do listen to country music, it's like old Americana, the Waylon Jennings, the Johnny Cash, the old schools, Don Williams. And so, but one of my favorite artists and always has been is Garth Brooks. Yeah. And I just
great showman.
But he's not the most talented guy. He's not the greatest vocalist. He's not the greatest songwriter. But that guy, you talk about sincerity, and I've never met him, but I experienced this. My wife bought me tickets 2 years ago to go see him. And it was on my bucket list to see that show, man, because, I would put him only second to Michael Jackson. In people.
I get that.
Show. And, man, we went to that show, and I'm not kidding you, there was 50,000 people there. And it literally felt like we were just all sitting around the campfire.
That's cool.
And I told my wife, that is the most spiritual thing I've ever experienced in my life. That a guy can sit there on a stage that massive, with that much production, with 50,000 people in a stadium, and make every single person feel like they're just sitting around the campfire. Not only that, in one day, he did 3 hour-and-a-half shows back to back to back.
Jeez.
And for people that have never performed, that is, and he did it for 4 days in a row. It was 2 years ago when he was doing those tours, and now he's on his stadium tour. And but the reason I say that is, at one point, Garth Brooks was in Stillwater, Oklahoma, at Oklahoma State playing the bars, but he had a dream, and I think sincerity always pays itself back. Yeah. That's why I always preach about, inspiring people to step into their dream, because if your dream is your truth, and if your dream is your childhood, then that is a sincere path to walk, and you're not walking.
And it seems where it impacts other people, and I've had, luckily I've had several people challenge me to that. Even I keep bringing him up, but he's been a great partner in this music career. My buddy Josh, who is the producer, and about a year and a half, 2 years ago, he challenged me. He's like, you need to really open up more about all the shit that I know you deal with, and talk about it. Don't just sing about it. So one of the songs we released was called "I Need a Light," and it was actually a story of me I've dealt with depression, anxiety my whole life, And it's a story of me getting in a car at like 3 a.m. I just started driving. I was in so much pain that I didn't understand. I just kept driving and driving, found myself in another state, and in my brain wasn't even sure if I was going to come back.
Yeah.
But something in me got me to turn around and eventually found my way back home, eventually started a journey of counseling and all these things.
Yes.
And so I started telling that story at shows. And I think one of the first times we were playing for like, I don't know, 200-300 like high schoolers out in Arkansas. And I share that story. And it was one of those things where the high schools bust them into a college. It's like a, recruitment week type thing. They brought us in to entertain them. And at the end of the show, we're sitting there talking, and teachers are trying to grab the students and drag them back on the bus because they are all one after another, tears in their eyes. I've been dealing with that. Or I have a friend who almost committed suicide, or in realizing, like, sharing my story, connecting with them and creating a piece of art they can find themselves in started inspiring them. And then we started seeing that time and time again. It's like, okay, if that's what we're going to do, let's do it. But it's scarier because you're saying,
vulnerable. It's vulnerable.
Yeah. Even down to like, I want to be the full-time, I figured this out musician, but I was like, no, I should start talking about the fact that I do a media company as well. But then when I lost 2 clients, I'm like, do I tell people that I might be driving Uber too? Because now I look like a fucking loser, right? Yeah. But in the end, it's like, I'm like, no, if that's the direction I go, I think I need to share that too, because it is that reality and that real life. And in a sense, it's like when I see other artists coming up, it's like, I have a friend named Keelan Donovan. If you have a chance, check him out. He's got signed. He's on tour with like people like All American Rejects and all this stuff, like dudes coming up. But like, I remember playing a show with him in a club where he played for us and we played for him.
Oh, wow.
And here he is playing these huge stages, and really, I think he's a brilliant songwriter and just a great dude. I think he's going to go far. But like seeing that and knowing his story and knowing the things that the choices he's had to make and the things he's had to do, like, makes it all the more powerful. Where in a sense, I feel like the people who are just finding out about him now, they kind of missed out on some of the cool things, and he's probably still playing some small clubs here and there too. But yeah, to see that reality, I think is a powerful thing.
Man, I always talk about the story, and the power is in the story. And it's almost like that's the DNA of humanity, right? It's like, I Need a Light is a cool song. By the way, it is a great song. I remember when it came out, and the video was even added to it, so good job. But the power is in the story, right? The DNA of humanity, the connection that makes us all feel that.
Yeah.
That's why we do art, man. That's why we create, and I would say if there's any artist out there that's stepping into this, I would say, number one, check your sincerity. And not even artists, but like, why are you starting that new business? Why are you wanting to take that step? And check your sincerity barometer, because that's the longevity. Passion and sincerity is the longevity. Money isn't the longevity. Being smart.
It's a component, but if that's the only driver, it's just not enough to push you through all the other shit. Because there's ways I can go make money right now.
Yes.
There's like, I have friends who have offered jobs in their company doing this or that. It's like, you can make a lot of money. And I'm like, maybe I should go do that. But I just know, at least at this point, I know I can't do that. And there's nothing, like I said, even down like, if you're starting the business just to make money, cool, but let's be honest about that.
Yeah.
And then that can even drive that, and, anyways, that can go down full rabbit trail too.
I love that, man. I love your story. That, man. We've, one of the best experiences I've had when we were on tour was when you took my buddy and I out for pizza in Kansas City, man.
It was a good night.
I think we sat there till like 2 a.m. or something. I don't know how, it was late, and at the end we were all like, we have no idea what we're saying right now, so we should probably go to bed. But man, that meant a lot to me, and I appreciate your friendship. And it's kind of this miracle of technology. It's like, I feel like I really know you, but I really don't know you that well. You know what I mean? It's like this crazy thing.
It's like I see all your things. I listen to the podcasts.
We've met physically once and had pizza, and it was and listened to each other play music, and it was a cool night. But
our favorite thing on the road was like the awkwardness of when someone would come up like, "Hey, I'm Gina,"
Yeah.
and we're like, "Cool," and she's like, "I'm Gina 4273." "Oh yeah, I know Gina 4273. We talk all the time on Twitter or whatever." It's like we realized so many people we knew simply by their handle, and then to see them in real life, it's like, oh my God, this is crazy. And they bring friends to the show and all that. It's such an interesting world, but worlds of opportunity.
That's awesome,
in it,
man.
so.
Yeah, I've even had a few situations where one time I was at a store in Lubbock, Texas, and this guy came up to me. He's like, "You're Mitch Gray," and I'm like,
That's awesome.
Maybe. It depends. I mean, it was those little things, but those are the cool stories and experiences that just make you go, okay, we're doing something that matters, and in the end, that's what we're about. So, man, any last words you want to share about what you're doing, or share where people can find you? I know we mentioned it at the beginning of the show, but where can people contact you, and anything else you want to?
Yeah, contact is booking at middletheorymusic.com, middletheorymusic.com. And then everything social media is at Middle T Music. And feel free to email, feel free to message me. I'm heavily on Instagram. I'm consistently on Facebook and Twitter. But if you're going to reach out through social media, probably the best place is Instagram. And I like one thing I did want to say too. I think it was a few weeks back you did a podcast on the question of like what if.
Yeah, the power of what if. Yeah. Yeah,
the power of what if. And it was funny because I forgot about the podcast, right? And every Sunday I kind of go to a local, most Sundays I go to a local coffee shop and I kind of journal and kind of get my thoughts out. And I started writing like, what if you could win? What if you could succeed? What if you could, like, what if these crazy ass dreams could? And I'm like all week starting to whisper to myself, what if you could? And then I was listening to another podcast and you referenced the what if thing. And I was like, damn it, I thought that was my thought. And I realized you had like subconsciously embedded that question in my head. Didn't even remember that fact. But the moment you referenced it on another podcast, I realized I was like, it like zoomed back all to it. I'm like, I thought that was my thought, but it wasn't. But it's been really helpful because it is. I am super energetic. I'm super optimistic, but then in any given moment, the world is going to end and this is all worthless and no one cares. And so it's like, no, what if you could? Yeah. What if you could accomplish this? And honestly, it's been giving me a lot of drive just to keep putting one foot in front of the other. So thank you for doing that. And thanks for inspiring. Like I said, I think to start the Live and Create series that I'm going to be launching in 2019 was kind of like you doing this kind of put a fire under my ass. It's like, okay, your time's opening now. I was super ambitious this year, working full time, starting a media company and doing the music thing. But now, yesterday was my last day working in the field for the landscaping company.
Nice. Congrats.
Thank you. And so now I have more flexibility at least to accomplish some of those things. So yeah, cool. Keep hustling, man.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Yeah, I try mind control. That's what all that is.
I'll make you think it's yeah. It really was. I was like, oh man. I think at one point even like I'm gonna like do like a post about that. I can still do a post about him, and now I got to reference you. But
I don't care, bro. Take it all you want. That's why I put information out there. I'm like, steal all the information you want, and sometime it'll come back to me. So, no, that's cool. That's great to hear, man. I'm glad to hear that. And you do comment a lot on our stuff, and that's so awesome. That's so awesome. So, I want to mention a few names that you mentioned for our listeners to go check out. Keelan Donovan, I got that right?
Yeah, Keelan Donovan.
Okay, I'm sure you can probably just search him on social media or somewhere.
Yeah,
okay.
Social medias and Spotify. He just released a new EP. He's on tour with Logan Mize right now. So
cool. Okay, so Keelan Donovan, go check out his music. And a resource for our listeners was Rick Barker. I guess you could probably just Google Rick Barker and find
music. Out. I think it's like musicindusтрyblueprint.com is his.
I've heard of that.
And he has a podcast it's 10-minute little podcast where he brings legit people and they just talk music business. It's legit.
Okay, so Rick Barker. So everyone go check out those. Keelan Donovan, check out his music. And Rick Barker, hopefully for those of you that are creatives or musicians specifically, that'll give you a great resource. Middle T Music. Go follow Middle T Music, especially at Instagram. You'll be able to check out Miguel's stories, check out the process, and he does a great job at showing.
Which I got to get you. I didn't get this on the story. It's like it didn't even happen.
Oh, yeah.
So now you're on the story.
Yes,
There you are, man.
What's
Mitch Gray.
What's up,
It's coming
everybody?
out soon. Boom.
Yeah. Awesome. Also, go check out Run With It. You can find them on Spotify, Apple Music, I'm sure. So their stuff will be out for a little bit longer, and it's great music. I Need a Light is a great, from a songwriter to a songwriter, that was a really cool song. So nice job. Any last comments, bro?
No, I would say just the biggest thing, it's, as we talked about, the 18, 19-year-old musician, if you're out there, yeah, just position yourself to take those opportunities and stay away from debt.
Yes, anybody. Don't have to be a musician to stay away from debt.
Right, that's true.
Everyone that is listening, stay away from debt.
Yeah.
I'm sure we could both speak from experience on that. I know I could. So, hey, thanks, brother. I appreciate it, man. This has meant the world to me. You're kind of the first one on this whole new thing that I'm doing. And next week we have a friend of mine, Kylie Johnson from California. She is a graphic designer, website builder, and a kind of a spiritual, self-spiritual teacher, and she's great. So
right on.
I'm excited for what we've got. So thank you very much. Make sure everyone that's listening, if you have not subscribed to the show, subscribe to the Mitch Gray Show podcast. We're doing all we can to inspire you. Go check out Middle T Music. You'll be able to follow Miguel. Check out our social media, M Gray Media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. You can check us out at mitchgray.me. Do you have a website, Miguel?
Well, just middletheorymusic.com.
Middletheorymusic.com. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you're probably building that up and getting that platform rolling as well. So,
yeah.
Also, listeners, if you are in a situation, maybe you're at a school or maybe you're in a community that has a venue and you would like to book Miguel, please contact him. He is looking to book shows, and right now most of his stuff is acoustic, but I've seen him play in person an acoustic show, and it is just as good as anything else. So booking at Middle Theory, tell me what it is again.
Booking at middletheorymusic.com.
Booking at middletheorymusic.com. So please don't, I know a lot of people go to book an artist and they're like, well, I can't afford an artist. You don't know that. Contact Miguel if you want a show. He's great with kids. He's great with any age group. Not just kids, but if you're at a high school especially, or a college or somewhere like that, make sure you call Miguel. Maybe you have a bar or a venue that you want to book some music. Miguel is awesome. Booking at middletheorymusic.com. Reach out to him. So thank you, my brother.
But yeah, definitely the price thing. We can work. There's options out there, even blocking and working with getting shows close by to where we can make it affordable for everybody. There's some cool stuff out there.
So reach out to him. Thanks, my brother. I appreciate it, man. And
thanks, man.
Brothers and sisters, I pray and hope that you have a great day today, a day filled with awesome, what is the word we use? Absurd dream making. And hopefully you'll have a day of peace and happiness, and some awesome things will happen to you today. This is the Mitch Gray Show, and we will talk to you soon. Miguel, if you'll stay on the line, we'll talk for a second.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Sounds
brother.
good.